In 1950, the median American home cost 2 times the median annual salary. A factory worker could save for 5 years and own his house outright. Today, that same home costs 8 times the median salary, and the average mortgage takes 30 years to pay off, assuming you can qualify for one at all. But here is the number that should genuinely alarm you. In 2010, institutional investors owned less than 1% of single-family rental homes in America. By 2024, that number has exploded, and in some Sunbelt cities like Atlanta, Phoenix, and Charlotte, institutional buyers now purchase between 20 and 30% of all homes sold. Companies like Blackrock, Invitation Homes, and American Homes for Rent are not buying properties to flip them. They are buying them to rent them back to you forever. This is not a housing crisis. This is not a market cycle. This is a structural transformation of who owns America. What we are witnessing is the return of feudalism, repackaged for the 21st century, where the new lords own the land, and you pay tribute not through grain and labor, but through monthly rent payments that never build equity. This is not a theory. It is a documented economic pattern, and today I'm going to show you exactly how it works. To understand what is happening to the American middle class, we need to examine 3 historical moments when land ownership was systematically transferred from ordinary people to a concentrated elite. The mechanism is always the same. Economic pressure forces small owners to sell, and capital consolidation creates a permanent renter class. The first example is medieval England after the Norman Conquest of 1066. When William the Conqueror took England, he did not just defeat an army, he restructured an entire economy. Before the conquest, approximately 70% of English land was held by small freeholders. By 1086, the Domesday Book recorded that virtually all English land had been redistributed to approximately 200 Norman lords. The mechanism was debt and taxation. William imposed crushing taxes to fund his military campaigns. And when Saxon farmers could not pay, they forfeited their land and became tenants on property their families had owned for generations. Within 20 years, a nation of owners became a nation of renters. The second example is the Scottish Highland Clearances between 1750 and 1860. Scottish clan chiefs had traditional obligations to their tenant farmers. But when wool prices surged during the Industrial Revolution, landlords realized sheep were more profitable than people. Using legal manipulation and outright violence, they evicted between 70,000 and 150,000 people from land their families had worked for centuries. When land became more valuable as an asset class than as a means of supporting a community, the community was liquidated. The third example is the American Dust Bowl and Great Depression of the 1930s. Between 1930 and 1935, approximately 750,000 American farms were foreclosed. The Federal Reserve's monetary tightening reduced the money supply by nearly 35%, making it mathematically impossible for farmers to read debts denominated in pre-crash dollars. The land did not disappear, but ownership transferred from millions of smallholders to a much smaller group of financial institutions. In each case, the pattern is identical. Create economic pressure, wait for distressed sales, consolidate ownership, and convert owners into renters. Now let us examine whether this pattern is repeating in the United States today. Data point 1 is the home price to income ratio. In 1981, the median home price was 3.2 times the median household income. By 2020, it reached 5.4. As of late 2024, the ratio stands at approximately 7.8 in major metropolitan areas and over 10 in cities like Los Angeles and Miami. When you adjust for mortgage rates, the monthly payment required to buy a median-priced home now consumes 43% of the median household income, the highest level ever recorded, surpassing even the 2006 housing bubble peak. Data point 2 is institutional buying acceleration. According to CoreLogic, institutional investors purchased approximately 90,000 single-family homes in 2019. In 2021, that number jumped to over $90 billion worth of properties. Invitation Homes owns over 80,000 single-family homes. American Homes for Rent owns approximately 60,000. Progress Residential owns another 84,000. These are publicly traded corporations with access to institutional capital that can outbid any individual family. When a house goes on the market in Phoenix or Tampa, the family offering asking price is competing against a hedge fund offering 15% above asking in cash with a 7-day close. The family loses virtually every time. Data point 3 is the homeownership rate trajectory. The U.S. Census Bureau shows that homeownership peaked at 69.2% in 2004. By 2016, it had fallen to 62.9%, the lowest level since 1965. The recovery to 66% by 2020 was not evenly distributed. Home ownership among Americans under 35 continued declining. For millennials specifically, home ownership rates are approximately 8 percentage points lower than baby boomers at the same age. The 2022 and 2023 interest rate increases have effectively frozen millions of potential buyers out of the market entirely. Data point 4 is rental cost extraction. The Bureau of Labor Statistics reports that rent prices have increased over 30% since 2020. Meanwhile, real wages have remained essentially flat. The average American renter now spends approximately 34% of their gross income on housing. The Federal Reserve's survey of consumer finances shows that the median homeowner has a net worth approximately 40 times higher than the median renter. When you systematically price people out of ownership, you are eliminating their ability to build intergenerational wealth. The land still exists, the houses still exist, but the ownership is consolidating upward at a rate not seen since the Gilded Age. So what does this historical pattern suggest about where we are headed? First, rental rates will continue extracting a higher percentage of household income until intervention occurs. The economic incentive for institutional owners is to maximize rent while minimizing costs. Without competition from accessible home ownership, there is no market pressure to reduce rents. The Federal Reserve Bank of Atlanta suggests that fewer than 40% of homes listed are affordable to the median household, down from approximately 60% in 2019. Second, geographic stratification will intensify. Markets with high institutional investor activity show higher rent increases and lower homeownership rates than markets where local ownership remains dominant. Young families will increasingly be forced to choose between career opportunities in high-cost metros or homeownership in lower opportunity regions. Third, the primary wealth-building mechanism of the American middle class is being systematically dismantled. For 70 years, the American economic model assumed that working families could convert income into equity through homeownership. That assumption no longer holds in most major markets. This is not a temporary affordability crisis. This is a structural change in who captures the economic value of American land. The historical pattern suggests this does not reverse without deliberate intervention. The Norman lords did not voluntarily redistribute English land. The Highland Clearances did not self-correct. What ended feudal land concentration in Europe was explicit legal reform, the abolition of primogeniture, and the expansion of property rights to commoners. The question facing America today is whether similar reforms will occur, or whether we continue drifting toward a model where the top fraction of wealth holders own the housing stock and everyone else pays rent. If you are currently renting in a high-cost market, the data suggests that waiting for prices to normalize may not be viable. The buyers you are competing against have a lower cost of capital and a longer time horizon. If you are a current homeowner, understand that your property is one of the only remaining vehicles for middle-class wealth preservation. The American dream was never just about houses. It was about the economic independence that ownership provides. That independence is what is being systematically transferred. And now you understand the historical pattern well enough to see it clearly.